What's up, viewers? My name is JGDSCHST, and I'm going to be doing another iceberg chart. Haven't done one in a couple of months, so I don't see why not. This is going to be a different iceberg chart than usual. I'm going to be doing the So Bad It's Good Movies iceberg, done by yours truly. Movies are ranked by notoriety or by their quality. I will warn you, some of the movies I haven't seen, but let's get started with layer number 1. The Room is a movie that was released in 2003, made by Tommy Wiseau, a person who has a lot of information I do not know about. The film has been panned thanks to the characters saying, "Oh hi," ends your character's name here. And it's also gone a reputation being the most famous So Bad It's Good movie. So let's move on to the second most famous So Bad It's Good movie. Birdemic Shock and Terror was a film created by a guy by the name of James Nguyen, filmed between 2006 and 2010. It took a long time because they can only work on weekends. Anyway, the film has been panned due to the crappy special effects and the $10,000 budget. The film has been riffed on by riff tracks and by a bunch of different internet reviewers, so watch them, they can probably give a more in-depth explanation on something than I can. And now to the final layer of this, final entry on this layer. Let's go start it. Batman Robin was a 1997 superhero film directed by Joel Schumacher and starring George Clooney. The film has been panned due to, taking more influence from the 1960s TV show rather than the films written by Tim Burton. It has since garnered a So Bad It's Good cult following, which is why it's on this iceberg chart. And now let's move on to the next layer. Sharknado was a 2013 made-for-TV horror film featuring a bunch of actors. It was criticized and panned, but has developed a cult following, which caused it to span 5 sequels, which will be covered later on this iceberg chart. Moving on. The Amazing Bulk was a 2012 made-for-TV superhero movie directed by Louis Schonenbrunn. It was criticized for the laughably bad CGI and the less than stellar acting. Oh, and the fact that the entire film was filmed on a green screen. Well, I think it's about time we move on to the next entry. Food Fight is an animated CGI movie from 2012, directed by Larry Kasanoff. It was supposed to come out in 2003, but, the film was stolen. He had to remake it from top to bottom, change the animation style. If you're more interested about it, I think there are some other videos about it that could explain a lot better than me. It's a weird combination of 1995 video characters and celebrity voice actors. Let's move on, shall we? Troll 2 is a 1990 horror comedy film directed by Claudio Freixo and stars Michael Stevenson, George Handy, and other people. It's disliked for having a stupid script and wooden acting. That's about it. Let's move on to the next film. Cool Cat Saves the Kids is a 2015 anti-bullying movie directed by Derek Savage. The film has been panned for giving out terrible advice and mixed messages. The film has also gone into controversy when its director, Derek Savage, took down a number of reviews of the film by people such as Josiah Clark, Bob Show, and I Hate Everything. And that's about it. There's one other Cool Cats films in Iceberg, so look out for those. Sharknado 2 is a made-for-TV movie and is a sequel to the previously aforementioned Sharknado. It's also known for having a bunch of cameos, such as people by Judd Hirsch, and stars Vivica A. Fox, who was in the previously mentioned Cool Cat Saves the Kids. It was also released a year beforehand, so take that as you will. Now let's go down to level 3. Cool Cat's Crazy Dream, try saying that 5 times fast, was a 2019 short film made by Derek Savage, who, in this film, voices Cool Cat. Jason Johnson, the guy who originally played Cool Cat, wasn't credited, so he took down the video over and over again. It's also known for featuring people who kids might recognize, such as George Takei and some guy from Criminal Minds. So let's just move on. Sharknado 3 is the third installment in the Sharknado film series. It's known for having more celebrity cameos and more product placement than in the previous films. Not much to say or add here, so let's just move on. The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl was a 2005 film, probably known for starring George Lopez. So let's just move on to the next entry, shall we? Shark Exodus is a 2015 horror film featuring sharks and is about an exorcism. It's known for having cheesy special effects and bad acting. So let's just move on. Sharknado The Fourth Awakens was a 2016 sequel to the Sharknado franchise. It aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. Well, it's about as good as all the other Sharknado films. Well, maybe we should dive a little bit deeper. Cool Cat Kids Superhero is a recut of Cool Cat Save the Kids, released in 2018, where, because of the backlash that Derek Savage received for Cool Cat Save the Kids, he cut out a lot of the scenes, like 13 minutes new footage. Critics still ripped him a new one of it though. So, let's move on. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes was a 1978 horror comedy film on a budget of around $100,000 and made back over 5 times its budget. The film has been panned due to its outlandish concept of killing tomatoes, and that's all I have to say, so let's just move on. Manos: The Hands of Fate is a 1966 horror film that remained in relative obscurity until 1993, when it was seen on the show Mystery Science Theater 3000. That's about it, so let's move on. Sharknado 5 is the 5th installment in the Sharknado series, and to be fair, I'm kind of tired of talking about the Sharknado movies. There's one more, so stay tuned for that. Cool Cat Fights Coronavirus, 2021 short film created by Derek Savage, what he wanted to show in schools. It's about Cool Cat and teaching kids to deal with the coronavirus. There's also the character of Dirty Dog, who is a fucking sociopath. So let's move on to the final part of this layer of the iceberg. Bride of the Monster is a 1955 B-movie directed by Edward D. Jr. and is also known for being the last film where Bela Lugosi has a speaking role. This wasn't his last film, however. The next film he's in is going to be appearing later on this Iceberg. In speaking with that, this is actually the last part of this layer on the iceberg chart. I know you're all thrilled to hear that. This video is almost over. So let's dive a tiny bit deeper. Sharknado 6 is the sixth entry in the Sharknado film series. It was released on the Sci-Fi Channel back in 2018, and is also the only Sharknado movie I haven't seen, well, by the release of this video. I'd like to watch it eventually, so let's move on to the second entry on this layer of the iceberg, shall we? Reefer Madness is a 1936 film about drugs and shit. It's also known for being the oldest soap-ads good movie somewhat about today, being released back in 1936. That's what I have to say, so let's move on to what is quite possibly the most famous soap-ads good movie next. Plan 9 from Outer Space is the 1959 science fiction movie directed by Edward D. Jr. It's also known for being the first and last to which Bela Lugosi made an appearance, and it was in relative obscurity until 1980, when it was featured in the book The Golden Turkey Awards, where it was listed as being one of the worst film ever made. Although this was way before films such as The Room, Birdemic, Cool Cat Saves the Kids, or even Sharknado, so not much going on. However, despite this actress doesn't really appear on any IMDb worst films list, and has a respectable around 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm not saying it's good by any means, which it kind of is. The reason why it's so low on the iceberg is because of its age. Also, I'm not very good at thinking about icebergs and shit. So let's move on to the penultimate thing on this iceberg. Let's move on. Gun Safety for Women and Men Too is a 2016 feature film that teaches, gun safety film that teaches both women and men, you make sure to mention men, about guns and shit. It was directed by the Cool Cat creator himself, Derek Savage. The film is known for not being that great, but it's Derek Savage movie, so what do you expect? It has been reviewed by people such as Homeless Movies and other film critics as such. Well, that brings us to the end of this iceberg chart. I hope you enjoyed it. If anyone wants to improve on it, you are free to do that. So, that brings us to the end of this iceberg. See ya.